What is Pen Steno? Did you really ask? Am I glad you asked if you did? Am I making a horrible mistake by even thinking that anyone else wants to watch a video like this? I'm sorry. We'll give it a try. Pen Steno is a way of representing the stenographic keyboard, the whole thing, using friendly little markings. And by friendly, I mean truly hard to understand markings. Let's start off by just looking at the blue that's on this picture. When I take a look at this mark, which conveniently I'm using a blue pen, the small curve bending up and to the left is the S key. You can also do it down and to the left, although I never use that. I always go up and to the left. Greg uses both for S, and I couldn't help but copy Greg because it's smarter than I am. But anyway, T goes up and to the right, bends up and out. K bends down and out. P bends up and in. W bends down and in. And then H gets small again. Why did I choose those? When I look at my fingers, these are longer fingers. Those are longer marks. These are shorter fingers. Those are shorter marks. I found it easy to make these bend up and out and these down and in my mind when I was trying to write with the system, first figuring out what I was going to do. And the reason I found it easy is because when I start with an S, I'm thinking forward into the word. And so this points me forward into the word. T is forward into the word. But when I was thinking of a P, I wanted to move up into it, and an H move up into it. Now, that's just every time I started writing, I ended up instinctively doing it wrong when I had them curved any other way. If I do these videos again, I need to glue this paper so it quits moving. All right, anyway. Now, the first thing that came to my mind when I was doing this was that this finger and this finger are the same. So I should flip the keyboard over. And this should be pointed this way, and this should be pointed that way. Totally doesn't work. Don't ask me why, but it doesn't. It's much easier to think in terms of these keys mimic each other in every way. The keyboard is replicated on the left and right hand side so that the same stroke represents the same key on the keyboard. I wanted at first for the same stroke to represent the same finger, but I couldn't make it work in my brain. It actually didn't happen. I think of the keyboard and the shape on the keyboard, not in my fingers. I don't think of this finger and this finger. Let's don't do that. Let's do this so we don't cause anyone to snicker at me. I think of the keyboard the keys that I'm striking, not of the finger positions. So mirroring the finger positions didn't work for me. You may find that I am the only person who thinks that way. If that's the case, you may completely reverse this. I understand. But what I found was that I am thinking of the keys that need to go down, the physical objects that need to be moved. And so this physical object corresponds to this physical object. And that's why the keyboard is replicated the way it is. Now the D out there, looping back, just to capture the fact that that little loop means include. So we're including that extra key. So a T and a D are very similar in my mind. I'm moving a little further to include that D. And when I think of it, when I think of Pen Steno, I am thinking of how my fingers move to hit the various keys. That brings us down to the vowels. A is up, O is down. No particular reason for up and down being in that order. But again, my instinct was to flip these so the E would be down and U would be up, and you'd get that mirror image. But no, even at the thumbs, I'm thinking of hitting the left side of the key, even though that means to move in with my left hand and out with my right hand. I'm thinking of the left side key, and so up is to the left for me and down is to the right. and that may or may not be true for you. If everybody thinks I'm wrong, we'll just change it. But that's how my brain is wired to this keyboard. And that's really what you're seeing here in these marks, is how my brain is wired to the keyboard. So blending A and O is just a longer loop. Blending E and U is just a longer loop. And now we get to the actual blends. This blend is easy, and so I went ahead and jumped to it. A and O are my anchor vowels. E and U are my add-on vowels. And so when I don't have my anchor vowels, I include the nil vowel. If I don't have A and O, and either one of them, then I include the nil vowel. So that would be a little loop that shows that nothing's there. So if I were to write the word of would involve this character right here, right? But that character is also the character for this. So there's some way to determine that this is S, this is F. What I have done is I have said, well, we have to include the nil vowel. When you put the nil vowel on this character, which, frankly should probably be written a little more attractively, when I put the nil vowel on it, it quits being an S and it becomes an F. It moves over to this side of the keyboard because I'm referencing the vowels that they don't exist. When I use the nil vowel for no A and O, it also means there's no E and U. If I were to write the word UF, don't ask me why I would write the word UF. Well, first let's start off with off. For off, I would write a low O, and then I'd put an F on the end. I don't need anything to say this is the right hand side because I have a vowel. Anything after the vowel is the right hand side. So here's your OF, and that's the word off. But if I wanted to say that this was the word UF using this, I would have to include the nil vowel. Doesn't matter which side I put the loop on. In this case, since I've written the O so small, or the U so small, I'll put it on the outside. So that becomes UF. I don't know what UF is. I don't have the dictionaries well enough memorized. But that's what the nil vowel does. Now, getting back up into the consonants, the vertical blends are the most obvious. If you hit the T and the K together, then I'm going to represent that with this line. Now, it's in gold or yellow or orange, depending upon how colorblind I might be, but it still bends out. You're going to bend that thing out. So if I'm going to hit there, that's how I'm going to represent it in Pen Steno. P is on the right-hand side of the left-hand key set, so I'm going to bend it the other way. Again, we have the long fingers, so we have the long blends. The short blend for HR. And when I'm deciding how big should I write a stroke, I have in my mind essentially the keyboard, right? I have that in mind. So how big should it be? If I'm writing a D, it should cover the keyboard. And then if I'm doing an O, I'm not going to go way down there. I'm going to attach it. And then the G is just one key, but it's a big one. So that's how I would write dog, is kind of about the size of covering the key. So if you can picture the keyboard this big in your mind, then you can write the same word this big, and as long as you can read it, you're fine. I find I am most comfortable writing about that size. All right, so our vertical blends, gold right there. Now the TD blend, you'll see that's an extreme angle. You're going to start off from the bottom. These are upward strokes. So you're going to go this way. If I were going to say bot, I would write B-O-T. But if I were going to say bots, I would be tempted to write bots. But it's just, the idea is that you can just bring that in and it becomes bots. You're blending in the upward direction. Now, if you were going to do bods, you would B, O, and come all the way around and make it a D at the end. So you go up into the D, you curve all the way over to say that you're doing D, DZ, and then throw that loop on the end, because there's a loop on the end of the T or the Z. Either way, you're going to put the loop on the end, and that becomes BODs. All right, horizontal blends. I've chosen the left-hand side of the keyboard to be straight. These, if you're going straight, you have an ST blend or an F, which is a TP blend. If you're going down, you have the SK blend, so skill starts right there. You put an I on it, and then you go up into the L. And KW, things like quit, you can see how poorly I write. That's not because I'm exceptionally nervous in front of the camera. I'm only slightly nervous in front of the camera. That's because my handwriting is atrocious. So your left-hand side is blended with straight lines. Your right-hand side is blended with these join lines, where you go off two. And again, I'm picturing the size of the keyboard. So the N is about that big. The M just covers 2 keys. And down underneath, you have WR, and you have down here Y. Now this, including all 4 keys, introduces the idea of this really long loop. That isn't tenable. So I created this. And that's just a horizontal loop that says blend. You find the same thing over here, except you don't have this blend. PL corresponds to M so nicely. I just stuck it. And this becomes a K, whereas this was a WR. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there. I found that mentally blending these this way worked. Ch and sh are pretty clear, pretty easy to follow. But trying to do a trailing M, if you were actually going to try to describe my steno system and you wanted to write the word dumb, that seems hard to me. So I wanted to put in dumb here. I find that looks more like an M to me. I just find that doesn't. And the other reason is because this is MNT, right? So I wanted the M and the MNT to be in the same cognitive domain. Using the long slash didn't work. So that's the MNT, and you can put an asterisk at the end of it if you want it to actually be the ment suffix. TD, dotted. If we wanted to dot something, O, and then just go out there a little further and put a loop on it, and that becomes dotted. If we throw the N and we put that and we go out there a little further, that's needed instead of just need. Need would have ended down here. Go out a little further so that you encompass 2 keys, it becomes needed. The last things are the green ones, and I guess I flipped orange and purple, but I caught up with myself on green. This is a 4-key join. This is a 4-key join. This is a 4-key join. Just over here, the first 2 keys happen both to be S. I've gone to the bother of leaning them a little bit because this is the takeoff point into the next letter. So it's kind of got to be leaned. And this is more about joining into the next letter. So it's leaned the other way. Short and fat is the left side. The biggest possible is the center 4. Skinny and tall, skinny and kind of tall, is these guys, these 4 keys here. That would be the BL blend. If you've ever typed blue, this is the blend for blue. And of course you go all the way around. You don't start again at the top. Over here, I never have seen LGTS as a frequently used blend, but TSDZ I do find every now and again, so I put it over there. PLBG, really common, and so is FPRB. I see it, but more often I see these 3 character blends, FRB and PBG. The sizing on this is frankly arbitrary. On my little keyboard sizer here, I make the one that big, and I make the other start from the top of the key and go across 2 keys. So I'm shooting for this blend, which is used in serve and curve and things like that. This is the Irv blend. I'm shooting for it to look a little smaller, but that doesn't look like anything else, and that makes it readable. And then over here, the again, that's just not used in anything else. I've avoided this curve everywhere. That curve loops back, this curve loops back. These only go up, so you're not going to confuse that with a vowel. If I had used, what am I talking about? These totally go up. What did I mean when I said that? Oh, they don't go down. If you were to try to use this, it distinguishes itself. If you say you know, you've got your leading U, and then you've got your PBG. There's no confusion about what's what there. And the last thing that is really just awkward, this is borrowed directly from Greg. I didn't have a good GS blend, and so I used this as a GS blend. That's completely irrational, but I don't want to use the horizontal line as the GS blend, because I would want to use the horizontal line for machine briefing if that day ever comes. So I'm using this vertical line, and that's, in my beady little brain, that's the one thing that totally is not consistent with the rest of the system, but I'm happy with it, and so I'm just going to stick with it. So that's what Pen Steno is. I think the asterisk. The asterisk always goes at the end of any, and that shouldn't say brief, that should say outline. Always comes at the end of an outline, because you don't want to confuse it with the nil val. If I were to say F asterisk, I can use the nil val and the asterisk in the same outline without hurting anything. If I wanted to say really, RL, and put an asterisk at the end, I would not be confusing things. If I put anything here, that would be the nil val. So your asterisk always has to appear at the end. An asterisk that appears independently is, just erase the previous outline. I use that when I'm writing and I don't like something. Say I were to try to write something and I didn't like it, partially because this is totally ambiguous. This is the S, this is the G, but it's also the W. So I could have written SW, or I could have written SG. So I've got to put a nil val in there to say that that's something. Something always has the nil val in it. But if that's not really what I meant to write, I put a line through it and put an asterisk after it, because I'm anal retentive, and that's the way I do things, is anal retentively. Also, if you were to try to do numbers, like if you wanted to do the number 2, you could do a T and do an asterisk with a line through it, and now you've made it the hash sign. That's the number symbol. And so if you wanted to steno your numbers in Pen Steno, you would be as anal retentive as I am, and I would apologize for having even put the idea in your head, because it's really ridiculous. But if one day you wanted to be able to machine write a number, you could do that. And of course, it becomes more useful when you do the TP blend and put the number through it, because now you've written the number 23, and you've at least written 2 numbers with 1 stroke, or 1 outline. So that's as anal retentive as I am capable of being at the current time. And I don't know, hopefully that makes some sense to someone. And if it doesn't, I apologize for doing that to your brain.